What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So Lucid had a pretty solid day. It did close up about 5%. I want to give you a good breakdown on why, what the data points are saying, and everything else you need to know. Make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that, let's get right to it. So like I said, 4.93% in the green. A lot of good momentum up to a high of $7.11. A little bit lower for volume. So around 41.8 million shares being traded. 61.7 is the average. So a little bit lower than that. So we'll take that and kind of compare it with a lot of the other data points in a second. But as far as today, there was no actual official press releases, no SEC filings, nothing along those lines. The only thing that really came out was this. So there was a little bit more of a promo. So it says exclusive Lucid Air lease and loan offers. And on a side note, I have brought up in the past numerous times on how Lucid's leasing program was a little bit more subpar. So they really did revamp it. I think it was around a month and a half ago. So definitely will be very interesting to see the upcoming earnings, the Q2 earnings, just to see if that did make a difference. But again, we'll kind of find out based on that. This promo is good up until July 31st, 2023. And as I've said in the past, you guys know my viewpoint on any of these promos. Typically, you don't really have to offer any promos if there is a sufficient amount of demand. So once again, going back to how important the upcoming quarterly earnings is, so the Q2, just to hear if there is any true demand or what the justification for, I guess, the lack of deliveries are and things like that. But based on this, it does show that there is the Air Pure, Air Touring, and Grand Touring. Clearly, there's a little bit more of a lack of demand in that, as you can tell based on the finance rate, 0.99% APR. So of course, that's a little bit more of an incentive for people to choose that versus the Air Pure is 3.49% APR. So definitely, I think the Pure is being grouped into this promo, whereas it probably doesn't need to be because clearly there is a sufficient amount of demand in that regard. But beside the point though, Air Pure is a very good indication. The fact that it's on this promo, that I guess big things might be coming and that they'll be starting to have deliveries fairly soon of that for the Pure. Because when it comes down to 2023, there's basically two very big catalysts that is coming out. Well, maybe three. There's the Sapphire, so that one's the kind of questionable one because they're going to be starting to have that. So once that's kind of seen, like word of mouth and various things, I think that might be a fairly good thing. But the Pure and the Gravity, those are the two very big catalysts for 2023. So definitely, I think this is a fairly good sign. And they do have something that says right here, view available models right now. If you click on that, it just shows a lot of these vehicles available in 2 weeks. So again, I think that's a pretty good thing. They haven't really elaborated. There actually isn't that many vehicles, to be fully honest. Only around, it looks like 6, whereas previously there was a significant amount. But still, moving on from that though, I'll give you guys a good overview of some of the data points today. So there was $2.92 million in calls being purchased versus 1.69 million in puts. So this clearly does insinuate that people are anticipating that it's going to continue to trend up. If you're looking at the grid, it is showing a lot of bullishness, surprisingly. So this is all the calls, strike prices, expiry dates, everything that you need to know here. It is anticipated to go roughly around back to maybe the 7 to 750 range by the end of the week. But as I've said in the past, options activity does not necessarily move the stock price. It is just merely a sentiment. But big money today, oddly, was just taking a break for some reason. So these are all the transactions that did occur on the secondary market over $100,000. Abnormally low and abnormally quiet, which, like I mentioned, based on this, the volume was just lower. So kind of interesting in that regard. But despite that though, it looks like the number of retail investors were very much buying this, I guess, dip, if you want to call it that, or the rally, whatever you want to call it. So definitely, I think that's a fairly good thing. Looking at stochastic though, it does have a little bit more of a bearish sentiment, which is at 57. But the pullback that has happened over the last little bit from its, I guess, temporary high of around $8.12. I think this is fairly good because it did kind of reset the technicals. It was very much overbought, very much so. So it's kind of cooling off. So that definitely is a fairly good thing based on the technicals. But with it being at $7.03, it is currently between the P and the R1. So 651 is the next big support. 717 is that next big resistance. So who knows, especially with Tesla earnings coming Wednesday after hours, it could potentially break above this R1 or maybe even better yet, the R2. You never know. It all depends on what is said because like I've mentioned, whatever happens to Tesla, the good, the bad, and the ugly, it does trickle down to Lucid. But a lot of things are starting to turn very bullish, one of which is the upcoming earnings. It looks like an analyst recently did update their estimate. So another analyst jumped on board. There's currently 6 analysts giving estimates for the earnings per share, and there is a consensus of negative 34 cents, where it was previously negative 38 cents. So that kind of is optimistic. And when it comes down to revenue, as you can see, it looks like that kind of stayed the same. So same 5 analysts, but they did kind of lower their revenue expectations, clearly based on what recently came out about Lucid's Q2 production and delivery numbers. So they did lower it from 207.98 million for an estimate versus to around $195.12 million for revenue within Q2. So definitely something to consider. Let me know you guys' thoughts on this. I'll give you guys a good overview, for instance, on what shorts are doing and what they did today, because shorts have been a pain in Lucid's back for quite some time, and I think we already do generally know that. But right now, the short score is currently 74. Utilization is 74.89%. And basically, they did return 653.84 thousand shares, 20.9% of the free float's being shorted, and that works out to be 170.88 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost to borrow is just completely penny, so the average being 1.07%. So kind of interesting in that regard, but the fact that they did return some shares on a very much green day is once again another optimistic bullish signal. So there is a lot of bullishness that's happening behind the scenes, with the exception of just big money taking a step back, but I think that's maybe normal because you can only buy the dip so many times potentially. Or maybe they are kind of concerned about this. Like I said, sometimes to offer these kind of promos is not necessarily always needed if the demand is there, but this is typically what's happening with a lot of the automakers, such as even Tesla. NIO recently did this as well. So I think this is just the new environment that we are in. Let me know you guys' thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. Give yourself a shout out if you have been buying, selling, holding, what you did with Lucid today, and where you guys see things going. Do you think it's going to stay in the 7s, pull back down into the 6s, especially based on some of these fib levels? What do you think is coming next? One final thing I just wanted to share with you, there is a new promo with Moomoo, link in the description below and also the comments. Free to sign up for an account as well. Throw $100 at it, you get 5 free stocks, each valued up to $2,000. And also you get a $50 cash reward. So this is an amazing promo. Link in the description below and also the comments. And with all that said, I appreciate you guys watching. Let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.